Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we're going to be discussing what to expect from the Packers offense in 2020. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So before we get started on talking about what they're going to look like next year, I kind of want to talk about what they did last year. For starters, they were 18th in yards, 17th in passing yards, 15th in rushing yards, and 15th in total points. And that kind of paints a picture that the Packers offense was really average last season. And statistically, they were. They were below average in generating big plays. So next season, look for Matt Lafleur to call some more plays that will be able to take shots downfield. Also, they want to play more up-tempo next season and keep defenses on their heels. They didn't really do that last season, and look for Matt Lafleur to really get into a rhythm offensively. Plus, look for Matt Lafleur to focus on the run game moving forward. And although they did use the run game a lot last season, look for them to move towards even as far as a balanced 50-50 offense where they have really good running backs and guys like Aaron Jones, Jamaal Williams, and they picked up AJ Dillon in the draft. And they also have good wide receivers like Davante Adams. So a run offense that also utilizes the pass, so a 50-50 balanced offense could be really, really good. And also if they run the football a lot, therefore they can use a lot of play action, and that could help them out too. Also in 2019, over 50% of the time, the Packers played 3 receiver sets, and they were in the top 10 in success rate there. So look for the Packers to continue to use a lot of 3 receiver sets, even if they don't have as much depth at the wide receiver position as other teams do. But they were really successful using formations and personnel groupings that utilize three receivers. So now let's get started on the players in the Packers offense. Obviously, they're led by the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, who's an 8-time Pro Bowler and 2-time All-Pro member, as well as a 2-time MVP. All those career accolades sound great, but Rodgers wasn't that great in 2019. Yes, he threw for over 4,000 yards and 26 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, but his quarterback rate was one of the lowest of his career. And yes, he was a solid quarterback, but you can tell that he's aging, right? He doesn't have the same X factor, but he's still a solid leader, and he's still a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and he's still one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. Yes, you saw that completion percentage dip a little bit last year. He only had 62% completion percentage, but throwing for over 4,000 yards, having 26 touchdowns, and only having 4 interceptions is a really good sign for him. If he can be that efficient next season, find his targets and guys like Davante Adams and the other wide receivers on the team, then this Packers offense is going to be okay. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers succeeds, this Packers offense succeeds. Aaron Rodgers, year in, year out, puts his offense on his back and really allows for the Packers to win games. And of course, there's the whole Jordan Love situation. But Aaron Rodgers is going to be the starter. Jordan Love was a pick for the future, so don't worry about Jordan Love coming in and stealing Aaron Rodgers' thunder. Moving on to the run game, which is something we're going to see a lot of in 2020 from the Packers. Led by Aaron Jones, the Packers' 2019 run game was pretty solid. Last season, Aaron Jones had over 1,000 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns, as well as he was pretty good out of the backfield as a pass catcher too, as he had 3 receiving touchdowns and 474 receiving yards. Aaron Jones is a multidimensional back. He is a good rusher, but he's a modern running back that can catch the ball into the backfield, make guys miss, and also he can run the ball down the middle. Also, his 16 rushing touchdowns last year led the league in that regard, and I don't think he'll get 16 rushing touchdowns again in 2020, but I think he could easily put up 10 rushing touchdowns. Aaron Jones is the leader of this running game, and they also have guys like Jamaal Williams and AJ Dillon in the backfield. Jamaal Williams was there last season. He was pretty solid. Not that special of a running back. I think he had 5 receiving touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, and 253 receiving yards. He's a good receiving back, and he added 460 rushing yards and a touchdown. But the guy I really want to talk about is AJ Dillon, who they picked up in, I believe, the 2nd round of the NFL draft this offseason. Dillon at Boston College rushed for over 1,600 yards and 14 rushing touchdowns, but as a passing back, he doesn't really offer that much. Therefore, the Packers drafting a guy like AJ Dillon, a pure power running back, really shows that the Packers really want to run the football next season. And AJ Dillon could be a guy that could help run the football down the middle and maybe take a little bit of Aaron Jones and Jamaal Williams carries. Now let's move on to the receivers. The receivers are where things get really interesting. Obviously, they're very top-heavy at the receiver position, but led by Davante Adams, they're probably going to be okay throwing the football. Adams is one of the best receivers in the game when he's healthy, which is something that he struggled with in the past. Out of his 6 NFL seasons, he's missed time in 4 of those seasons. So if Adams can stay on the field, he's going to be brilliant. Last season, he had 997 receiving yards on 83 catches and 5 touchdowns. Those are really good stats, and he only did that in 12 games. If he plays an entire season, 1,300, 1,400 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns is not out of the question. I mean, if you look at his 2018 Pro Bowl season, he had over 110 receptions with 1,386 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns. Adams is one of the most elite wide receivers in the NFL, and he's up there with guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, and Michael Thomas. But when we talk about receiving depth, the Packers are not your first team that come to mind. Yet they did add Devin Funchess in the offseason, who I think could be a really good impact player for the Packers. He was injured for all of last season, basically. He only played in 1 game for Indianapolis, but in Carolina before, he's been a solid guy. In 2018 and 2017, he was a dependable player in that Carolina offense. In 2017, that was his best season. He had 63 catches for 840 yards and 8 touchdowns. So that's a little taste of what he can do. As a second wide receiver, I think he could be really solid. But really, that third wide receiver, that fourth wide receiver, there's a lot of young guys that could really make a difference. Let's start with Allen Lazard, who's probably going to be that third wide receiver in the Packers system. Lazard last season was a pretty average wide receiver. He had 477 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. But Lazard, as a third wide receiver, could be a solid option. But they also have other guys that can be in that third wide receiver role. They have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's played well in the past. He had 452 receiving yards last year and 2 receiving touchdowns. And they also have Equanimous St. who is another solid guy that's been okay in the past. In 2018, he had 328 receiving yards and no touchdowns, but he did have 15.6 average yards per reception on 21 catches. So that's a little bit about the wide receiving core there in Green Bay. No, they're not that deep, but they have Davante Adams, who's one of the best playmakers in the NFL, to lead them in the red zone. And also they have guys like Devin Funchess, and you could always see them maybe go out and trade for someone. But really, this wide receiver room, people really worry about it. They're like, the Packers don't really have any depth, but they have a lot of 400, 500-yard wide receivers, and that means that they can put a lot of guys on the field at one time, and they kind of know what's going to happen. I don't think that their wide receiver depth is as big of a problem as analysts and NFL fans make out to seem. Yes, after Davante Adams, their talent severely drops off, but they brought in Devin Funchess, and although they did lose Geronimo Allison this offseason, I think they'll be okay. Plus, at the tight end position is kind of going to be an interesting spot. Right now, they have Jace Sternberger. Sternberger is a guy they like a lot, even though he barely hit the field last season. He only played in 6 games, but did not record a catch, mostly because of a guy named Jimmy Graham. But now Jimmy Graham is out, and he's on Chicago, and now Sternberger will be the starting tight end. As I said, the Packers really like him. They like his versatility, and they like what he's been able to do on the training field, as well as they saw what he was able to do in college. He was picked in the 3rd round out of Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken, in 2019, and he didn't really play a lot last year, but they do like him, and they also picked another tight end in the draft, Josiah Deguara, I believe that's his name. Deguara is a solid tight end out of Cincinnati. He was one of the higher picked tight ends in the NFL draft, but what Deguara is he can play all over the field. He can play as a fullback, he can play as a tight end, he can be a dominant player anywhere on the football field. And last season at Cincinnati, he had 504 catches. He had 504 receiving yards, for 39 catches and 7 receiving touchdowns. So he's a big play guy. I think he could be a solid player in that Packers system, and look for him to be all over the field. I think he's a really versatile guy, and both Jace Sternberger and Deguara are very, very versatile guys who the Packers coaches can really put anywhere on that offense, and they can make a difference. If it's blocking, if it's catching the football, they have both of them are really solid blocking tight ends who can make some plays in the passing game. But now let's talk about the offensive line. The offensive line is a really interesting subject for the Green Bay Packers. Obviously led by the left tackle, the all-pro guy, David Bakhtiari. He had over 1,000 snaps last season and only gave up 2 sacks. It's absolutely incredible. He's one of the best left tackles in the game, if not the best left tackle in the game. Bakhtiari is the fortifying factor of this Packers O-line. So if Bakhtiari can stay healthy, he can be there, then this Packers O-line should be okay. He does protect Aaron Rodgers' blind spot, and yes, that's important. So look for Bakhtiari to be a really important guy in protecting Aaron Rodgers. Also, they have Elgton Jenkins at the left guard position. Jenkins played just shy of 1,000 snaps last year, but didn't give up a sack. And yes, he gave up 8 penalties, but 0 sacks is really, really solid. He was one of the better left guards last season, and he's super underrated. Really, no one really talks about him, and he doesn't really get that much media attention. But he's another great player on that left side of that O-line. Now on to Corey Linsley. Linsley is another solid guy. He played just shy of 1,000 snaps last year, and he earned a 69.8 PFF passing grade, player grade, excuse me. Linsley is a solid center. Yes, he did give up 5 sacks last year, which is a lot for a center. But if he can bounce back in 2020, he can help that run game move forward, as well as he can be a great guy to protect Aaron Rodgers. They also have Billy Turner at right guard, but I want to talk about the right tackle position for a second, where they picked up Rick Wagner from the Lions in the offseason. Wagner played 753 snaps last year and gave up 3 sacks, but his player grade was only a 59.0 from PFF. Yes, he did play in 12 games, I think, only, so he wasn't healthy for the entire year. But at the same time, Wagner has been an okay right tackle in the past, but it's really a cover-up for the big loss they had in the offseason in Brian Bulaga. Bulaga is now on the Chargers. He was a free agent acquisition for them, and he's going to be a really big loss for the Packers. Rick Wagner is nowhere near what Brian Bulaga was able to do. He doesn't have that same talent level. He's not as good of a pass blocker, but Bulaga is going to be a really big loss for them. So if Rick Wagner is able to fill the shoes of Bulaga, then maybe that offensive line can be really solid next year. But without Bulaga, I think they might have some problems. With Bakhtiari and Elgton Jenkins manning the left side, I don't really think that's going to be a problem. It's really the right side of the O-line with Billy Turner, who did play 1,000 snaps last year, and Wagner, as I said, he wasn't that great last year. He was injured a little bit, but really this offensive line needs to stay healthy if they're going to be good next season. Bakhtiari, as I've said a few times, is a really solid left tackle, and if he's able to stay healthy, Aaron Rodgers can stay upright, which will allow that running game to be good and that passing game to be good. And although I don't think they're going to be an average offensive unit next season, the stats really point from last year to that they're going to be an average offensive unit in 2020. Yet, if Davante Adams can stay healthy, if they can get the running game going, if Aaron Rodgers can be a little bit better than they were last year, I think they could be a top 10 offense in the NFL. Maybe they're not a high top 10 offense. I don't think they're anywhere near what the Chiefs or the Ravens are able to do, but they've got some real superstars on this offense that can make them the 10th or 11th, maybe the 12th best offense in the NFL. And especially going to Matt Lafleur's second season as the Packers head coach, I think this offense will grow, it will develop, it will become a better offense, I think, just game plan-wise, scheme-wise. Matt Lafleur will understand what worked, what didn't work, and will revitalize that offense coming into 2020 to try and hope to make the Packers not only the division winners, but go back to the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs like they did last season. So watch out, Packers fans, for this Packers offense in 2020. Now that you've reached the end of my video, I want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe as it helps my channel out, and check out my other videos on my channel. Also, you can follow my Instagram, the link is in the description down below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, see ya.